Right, guys. Tom and Liam here from PH Nutrition. We are going to be going through some nutrition advice for Super Saturday, how to fuel for it, how to get the most out of it, and how to work your way up that leaderboard. So first things first, we're just going to cover how to approach it, your nutrition during the week, what we're going to do the day before, actually how to fuel on the Super Saturday, what to do post-workout the next day, and we're going to touch a little bit on supplements as well. So one of the key points, guys, is don't be chasing your nutrition on Saturday morning. You know, we want to be a little bit proactive in terms of our nutrition. And, you know, it's, yes, pre-workout nutrition is super important, as you're going to find out, but we don't want to be thinking about just in that pre-workout period, in that 2-hour period before we actually kind of throw some weight around. We've got to be thinking a few days before. So don't be chasing it on that Saturday morning. A lot of you have maybe heard of the term carbohydrate loading. It is an actual thing. It's a real thing, and it's a very beneficial thing to do. However, we just need to do it in the correct way. So Tom and I are just going to talk through actually how we want you to set your nutrition plan up, maybe give you a little bit of guidance in terms of an overall structure. So as you can see here, we've got the usual kind of training day from the JST programming, where we have 3 days of training. We have a rest day, or as we like to say, growth day. And then we're going to have the training. And if you're doing the Super Saturday, this will be slightly tailored. And then we have the competition day. So Tom, can you just talk through like how we're setting the kind of nutrition plan up and what we're advising, as opposed to just kind of shoveling a load of carbohydrates in on Friday night?
Yeah, I think the way that we can, let's say, more easily and naturally carb load is to drip feed it. So rather than, like we said, you know, Friday night, we're sat there and shoveling bowls of pasta in, which, you know, we've then got to digest that food. You know, the body's got to work harder if we're suddenly, you know, throwing bowls and bowls of pasta in the evening. So from kind of Wednesday onwards, a really simple thing that all you think about doing is adding, you know, an extra serving carbohydrate into your meals. And then if your exercise level tailors off, then you naturally will have more carbohydrates stored in the body available to use on the Saturday. So Thursday could be a rest day. Even if it's an active recovery day, it's still at lower intensity. And then Friday, you know, in the programming, it gives you the pathway that if you're doing Super Saturday, your training load reduces. So again, you're not going, you know, full day of training. So you've got, you know, more stored energy that your body can draw on, and find, you know, more efficient way of doing it come that Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Friday is effectively seen, no matter what your training is, you should be seen as a normal training day nutrition, same as Thursday. Now, if you do that, you're not going to be feeling full. You're not going to ask your body to digest, like I say, a bolus load of food. And actually then we'll be thinking about hitting that Saturday, and that morning is going to be a top up as opposed to a fuel. So we're going to be topping up the tank as opposed to fueling the tank. Fueling the tank is done on these few days. So I hope this helps, guys, in terms of give you a little bit of structure. And obviously you can just tailor this depending on when you take the rest day, or the, you know, the level of training that you do on the Friday. So here is a few tables for you to use as a bit of a guide in terms of the foods to focus on and the foods to limit. Now, you know, at PH Nutrition, we love our veg. However, certain types have maybe a slightly higher fiber content. Certain proteins have a higher calorie content, fats, and carbohydrates. They say they're not all made equally. So when we're actually leading into a competition day, which effectively is what Super Saturday is, we could potentially look at limiting or lowering our fiber content. Okay. Now, the reason for this is to aid in digestion, is to increase our or decrease the potential gut issues from having a large amount of fiber. So, I mean, Tom, you've been following a more plant-based diet recently. You've had to kind of make these changes just to try and hit a higher calorie intake, but this is definitely something that everybody can kind of focus on, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we want to think about the transit time. And like I say, we want that food to, we want a nice pathway from when we eat it to when it's digested and then it's ready to use. So, simple things like carbohydrates. If we're thinking about, pastas and rice, maybe the go-to during the week for whatever reason is like the whole grain version. Just switching that into, say, white rice, white potato, white pasta. We've got, again, less grain, less fiber. That's going to digest nice and quickly. Same with things, like simple fruits as well. If we think about adding an extra portion of carbohydrate in, that could be, another handful of fruit. It could be something thrown on top of your yogurt. It could be, an extra banana at an evening meal, things like that. And the same goes for the protein, Liam, right? If we're thinking about fat and digestion, again, if it's a little bit leaner, it's going to digest a little bit quicker, and we're making room so that food, we're not feeling heavy going into the Saturday. We're just feeling fueled and ready to move around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, guys, we're not saying that you shouldn't be eating any of these foods, but you might be want to just, like, say, limiting them. So they shouldn't be kind of maybe at every single meal time, or the volume of them should be maybe a little bit less. Like you say, adding it, you don't need to overhaul your current meals, making small additions such as, dried fruit, apricots, dates, let's say bananas, stuff like this is super easy to kind of bolt things on. So guys, this kind of gives you a little bit of like lower fiber veg, leaner proteins, ones that are a little bit easier to digest, and let's say some carbohydrates to focus on. So kind of leading into the Super Saturday, this is going to help you to eat a little bit more, which is going to help you to hit your calorie intake and increase your carbohydrate intake, and hopefully it's going to minimize any kind of gastric issues. So Tom, talk us through a couple of real kind of key focus points that we need to focus on during Super Saturday.
We need to remember, like, this is a performance-based session. And if we're following it all the way through, it's quite a long session. But we don't want to be like stressing about our nutrition on the day. We want to minimize stresses. We want to really go into that session. Everything's kind of done Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And something we commonly see on a Super Saturday, or particularly, like a competition day, is suddenly like people's mindset changes. And it's the same with, if you think about training, like we often are creatures of habit, like whether we wear lifters or we don't, whether we use knee sleeves or we don't, like we wouldn't suddenly start getting out, new bits of kit on a day. And the same goes with your nutrition. Like, don't suddenly panic and go to the shop and suddenly start buying gels and bars and things you've never used before. We have to like train our gut. So the best way to do that is eat like familiar foods in the days leading up to, and like particularly like the morning of, whether it's a breakfast or a snack, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you can obviously trial these things out, potentially on a Monday or a Wednesday, maybe days that you're doing like two sessions or heavier lifting sessions. But it's something we commonly see is people like stressing on the day and trying to find those inches that Steve talks about. But actually, like, the groundwork should be done. So we should be kind of, streamlined and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, guys, Super Saturday is intense. So, this is what we're talking about. And I don't want to be saying they're banging the drum of carbohydrates, but the volume, the intensity, the type of exercise that we're doing, carbohydrates and stored glycogen is going to be, an absolute necessity if we want to perform optimally. So here is a little graph that we've got for pre-workout nutrition. We posted this on Instagram the other day, and it just gives you a really easy overview of where you should be kind of like putting yourself, depending on the time of day that you're going to do it now, depending on the gym, depending on your setup at the moment, wherever you're going to be doing Super Saturday, whether that's like first thing in the morning or say or more lunchtime or afternoon, whatever it is. You can put yourself on each, each time frame and follow that super easy. So, the longer, the further away from the workout it is, maybe you can eat more of a mixed meal, and then kind of follow the timeline in. If you have the opportunity to hit every single time frame, do it. You will go into that session feeling good. You don't have to just pick one of them. If you have the opportunity, hit all three, and I guarantee you'll be absolutely flying. Now, if you're training, it may be like, Tom, you train super early, like 7 a.m. or 7:30, then you might want to just kind of like, obviously you're not going to get up at 4 a.m. and smash a bagel. Maybe you will, but probably you're going to be coming into 90 minutes or at least maybe 30 minutes beforehand. So you can just put yourself on that, on that timeline. So guys, check that out. And again, we follow the same principles: minimal fiber, lower fiber veg, carbs and protein. The closer we get to the workout, the more liquid based it is, and the more carbohydrate dominant it needs to be. So that's a really, really kind of quick overview for that, guys. Check that out on Instagram, or use it on this slide as well. Now, the Super Saturday session obviously normally broken down into kind of multiple parts. We've got a lifting portion, or build to a heavy certain lift or something else. But then there's always like, a second portion or a workout, and then maybe even something else after that, isn't there, Tom? So, if guys are really looking to kind of get the most out of it, are there a couple of bits of tips and tricks that maybe they can use?
Well, one, again, it's something we mention all the time, but people sometimes neglect to do it, is going to be hydration, even in like the colder months. If we're training for longer periods of time, making sure we're well hydrated into the session and throughout. So just sipping on some water, nice and simple. Potentially, if you're doing this kind of Super Saturday, maybe mid-morning or even earlier in the morning, you might have only fallen into that like snack or liquid nutrition kind of category.
Yeah.
So, if you're training over 90 minutes, we start to deplete, glycogen. We can potentially see a little kind of tailor off of performance. So don't be afraid, again, to kind of top the tank up. We don't necessarily need to be, shoveling down gummy bears and this kind of stuff, during a session, but just suddenly sipping on some water with some electrolytes in would be great. Having maybe a little bit of carbohydrate in liquid form, so that third part of the session, whether it's the gymnastics or the bodybuilding or the skill work, we don't see a drop off in performance, and you can maximize all three parts of the training session.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like there is obviously, like, we want to be working up the leaderboard and keeping Steve away from that top place, but it's about the whole session, and using intra-workout, depending on what your pre-workout nutrition is really important, guys. And when we're talking about carbohydrates, you can use fruit juice, you can use, Lucozade. Like, it doesn't need to be like, 5-pound coconut water or buying another carb powder. Like, you can do that, but it's just like you say, simple stuff. And then the longer that you have a break, maybe then you want to have something more solid. Like, I know the guys are, it's pretty strict on timings, but if you do for any kind of intra workout, the longer break that you have, maybe it's competition setup as well, maybe 20-30 minutes between it, that then you can maybe have some, like, say, dried fruit, banana, or etc., or whatever. But for us, just keep it liquid based, and like I say, it will allow you to get the most out of this part of this session, and that you're not just kind of getting through, because that's going to improve your performance. It's going to help your recovery, and that's going to, you're going to maximize the stimulus of this session. So really kind of useful tips there, guys, to maybe kind of put something in, and I'm telling you, you'll be amazed at the difference it makes in terms of that end of that session. That extra 20 minutes when you've got an EMO or some bodybuilding stuff. We still want to feel the pump towards the end, because look, the goals of what we're trying to do in this session is maximize energy production. This is competition. We want to be performing well. We want optimal energy levels, and if we do that, if we follow this advice, we will be hitting the ground running. But we also want to be thinking about reducing fatigue, and when we fatigue, which we're actually going to do a video on very soon about why we fatigue, one of the key things is a lack of substrate. Now, when you've got a hard training week, and when you've got a really intense session, then yes, you can potentially start to deplete substrate levels. We're talking about carbohydrates, glycogen, so creatine levels even. So this is going to, we want to prevent that, and by using these strategies, we can help to do that. This is a little bit sciencey, increasing neurotransmitter production for focus, but we've all gone into that session where we just can't kind of focus, or we can't lift, or we can't, when we snatch, it feels like we've got like noodle arms and it's all going everywhere and we can't catch it. This comes from like under fueling, and nutrition plays a massive role in that. So this is why we're talking about practicing your nutrition plan, and making sure that you're doing something that works for you. If you follow this advice, and like I say, you're not going to be chasing it, so your body's going to be ready to lift heavy. And look, in increasing blood flow and oxygen transport, like, a part of this workout is going to be sweaty. It's it's normally going to be heavy. It's normally going to be intense. So we want to be thinking about putting as much blood flow and increasing that to our working muscles. Now, supplementation wise, one of the things that we might want to be thinking about using is beetroot. Now, I know it tastes a little bit funky, but you can get the beet shots, and you can use these. Like, I've been doing a bit of research for a couple of athletes, and there actually is some evidence that even using it acutely, so very, very few supplements work in an acute manner, but actually beetroot juice supplementation taken 2 to 3 hours before a workout can actually help reduce fatigue and improve performance. So this type of exercise, this type of training is going to be beneficial. So potentially people might want to use beetroot either acutely on the morning or in the couple of days preceding into it. Tom, have you ever used it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've used those beet it shots. Yeah. So I'm glad it's in a shot form. Let's say that.
It is funky. The other thing is, guys, is that some of the research out there actually shown that people who naturally have a higher level of intake of nitrate rich foods, carrots, beetroots, cabbages, stuff like this, spinach, the effects are not as much. So if you don't want to be taking beetroot juice in the concentrate form, then increasing your overall intake of nitrate rich foods would be really beneficial. So that'd be another thing that we can add in simply to help improve performance. So beta alanine is something that maybe a few of us have been taking. You have to saturate your muscles, okay? So you can't, although it's in a lot of pre-workouts and it makes your ears tingle, it doesn't necessarily have an acute effect. So you can't take it and then all of a sudden we can lift 10% heavier. But in terms of anaerobic performance, in terms of lactate buffering, then it's been it's super beneficial. So normally taking it 4 to 6 weeks, you can saturate your muscles. Maybe 4 or 5 grams a day is about the kind of recommended dose.
Could you, Lee, touch on like the whole skin tingle thing?
Yeah.
Could people like split the dose or dilute it to not get that skin tingle effect?
Yeah, 100%, mate. You can split the dose, so 2.5 grams, or if you need to take a higher amount, you can split it across the day. Again, it doesn't matter. The timing doesn't necessarily matter. It's about your consistency of taking it. There is one product actually from Etix. They're like an endurance brand supplementation. They have a slow release beta alanine, which again we've used with a couple of footballers that really couldn't handle it. The thing also, we used to get them for that, but it ain't cheap. So I would say split your dose, dilute it a little bit, would be really beneficial. Next one, our favorite, creatine. Again, if you're looking to kind of get a bit stronger, improve your power output, and you haven't taken creatine or you're not taking it, I'd probably say you need to be taking it. So I think creatine is definitely something that we want to be adding in. Tom, have you been supplementing it since you've been going more plant-based?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously it's not as naturally occurring in a kind of plant-based diet. No red meat, no fish, those kind of things. So and it's not necessarily you need to load. I think it's just something like beta alanine. Like you just need to make it habit-based and consistently take it every day.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. But there is something that it does work acutely, and that's caffeine. Now, this can be from Nocco, coffee, tablet form, whatever it is. But yeah, I think the benefits of caffeine in terms of power output, reducing fatigue, exercise performance, very well documented. So highly recommended. Get that into you. So little kind of wrap up here, guys. So intra-workout. Should we be using it? Should we not be? I think it's very much dependent on the person, on your pre-workout nutrition, the time that you probably do the session. Would you agree, T?
Yeah. Again, I think if you've only had a small snack or something, very, very liquid based, then you haven't got as much circulating energy in the tank, so you might need to top up.
Yeah.
If you've had breakfast and a snack, you're probably going to be okay, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Post-workout nutrition. Now, we haven't really talked about it, and everyone loves to talk about post-workout, but pre-workout nutrition is more important when we're trying to improve our performance. But post-workout nutrition and the next day, so like in terms of what you should be eating post-workout, will be very much dependent on your goals, what you're going to be doing later that day, what you're going to be doing the next day. We want to be thinking about making sure that we actually obviously recover efficiently. But I think a lot of people can get kind of hung up on post-workout nutrition. Now, if you are going to take a rest day on Sunday, we have multiple feeds before our next training session. So we have maybe 8-9 feeds before we're going to train again. So the requirement to kind of, like, say, drop the barbell and start kind of chugging down shakes or smashing in whatever, then I don't think it's necessarily needed. However, if you are going to train the next day for whatever reason, then it might be something that you want to prioritize. But one kind of like a thing that we use is, so one kind of like topic that we talk about is rest days and growth days, and Sundays are normally that. Now, Tom, have you ever gone into the Monday session after a rest day feeling a little bit sluggish?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's often common that we think, well, because we're resting and we're not as active, we don't need to eat as much.
Yeah.
And then, the body then hasn't got enough fuel in the tank. We've spoken about having enough fuel in the tank for the work required, and going to do a double training day on a Monday, and I'm already, running on fumes a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm potentially, not going to be, in terms of muscle soreness, getting enough protein in, getting enough fruit and veg, just eating enough generally on that rest day to help with those muscle soreness from Saturday. And I think sometimes as well, like, I'm not degrading that you can't go out and maybe have a good meal on a Saturday night, or maybe you go out with a few friends and have a takeaway or something, celebrate your success. That's cool. But then, Sunday can then be, you kind of think, well, maybe Saturday I've eaten a bit too much, so Sunday I'll cut back a little bit. But then we've had maybe one meal on Saturday that's maybe the quality isn't very good. Sunday we maybe then don't eat enough to recover, and then kind of Monday we end up suffering because of that. Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Then you're chasing your ass during the rest of the week.
Yeah,
you missed a kind of good day's training. So look, for me, rest days can be something that, how about lowering the day before? If your pre-workout is good, you feel leading into that workout, that Super Saturday, then the requirement post-workout is slightly less, because we've got so much in the tank. We've been feeling good. So actually post-workout, you might want to lower your intake on that Saturday, because you then keep your intake more balanced on a rest day. So you have a tiny bit more food. It's a little bit easier to kind of manage your hunger levels, because sometimes we're a little bit hungry on a rest day. Then you can be thinking about, boom, I'm going into Monday feeling good, I'm feeling strong, and you're going to get the most out of your training week there, rather than, like, say, kind of like surviving through Monday before we start to kind of thrive on Tuesday again. So look, guys, there's a link to this video, just kind of where I talk about how to kind of set things up. But I think that's a really sensible thing to do. So post-workout nutrition, think about what you're going to be doing, and think like your structure of your week, and then you can hit the ground running. So T, thank you very much for joining me on this call. Hopefully, guys, you've got some really kind of like good take-home tips to kind of work on, getting the most out of it. Keep Steve off that top of that leaderboard, because I know he's on it at the moment. So yeah, that'll be something to kind of really work on. And if there are any questions, just don't hesitate to contact myself, Tom, or get on the PH Nutrition Hub, where we have more information in terms of how to time your training, nutrition around your training, weightlifting nutrition, injury nutrition, recovery stuff. So if you are looking to kind of upgrade or level up your nutrition, then kind of come on board, check it out, and we'll get loads of good JST specific stuff coming up in the future. T, thank you very much, mate, and I will talk to you all very soon.